Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial quarterback. Whether you've had years of success in your business or are just starting out, DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family and guide you toward the fulfillment of that goal. As they say, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your virtual family office. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco. Today we're going to be talking about a lot of people. Good morning, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing great. Getting a little stir crazy being on all this quarantine stuff. So
I know, right? So now that we're all quarantined, you want to talk about getting a bunch of people together, it sounds like.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right. So you sent me some notes and it says, you told me we're going to be talking about the 15 people you need on your team. Now that's a good full-size baseball team with a little extras there.
That's true, and I think it's interesting because I think when we look at the team, most business owners, I think when they think of the team, they think of their internal team. You know, their office manager, operations person, bookkeeper, their sales team, production team, employees, whatever that is, and that's really, and that's an important part of the team. And I think it's important to find the right people that fit into a culture of a business. So that business operates at its highest efficiencies. Mm-hmm. But there's also what I call the external team. And this is the vital professionals that are not necessarily involved in the day-to-day part of the business. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they're overlooked, but they still form a very valuable role. And, so it's really important to have the right people in these positions. So that's a little bit about what I want to talk about and how to help to coordinate all of these people to a common goal that the business owner has.
All right. So where do we start then with this? I mean, out of 15, where do you think the most important people lie in this situation?
Well, the way I look at it, I think there's 5 that are critical that all business owners usually have. And then there's another 5 that I think are overlooked that they really should consider. And then there's another 5 that kind of fill in ancillary pieces, maybe on an as-needed basis for the business owner. So I thought, okay, Eric, what we could do is start with the first 5 that are critical.
All right. Sounds good.
So the first one is, of course, the CPA. And that's, usually for the business owner, that's one of the most vital people because, again, we all have to pay taxes. What did Ben Franklin say? The only thing for sure in life is death and taxes. So they look at them as a very critical person. They also, in many times, they look at them as kind of their go-to person on financial matters. Mm-hmm. Now, what I found with CPAs is that they're usually in a long-term relationship. It's somebody that they found and they typically keep for a long time. Yeah. Some of the problems I see is that the CPAs a lot of times tend to look at the short term or the immediate need. What's my tax liability going to be today or the next year? But are they looking 10, 15, 20 years down the road? Mm-hmm. So what we do, because again, these are long-term relationships, we typically work with the business owner's CPA because again, there is that relationship that's built. Now, if they're not either happy or they don't have one, we can refer them to people that we've vetted. But for the most part, we're typically working with the CPAs that the business owner has.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly important. That's something that you and I have talked about before, is that your goal is not to replace the people that a business owner already has in their life. You're trying just to get everybody working together and on the same page so it runs more as like a fluid machine. And I think that that's a great approach because no business owner wants to be told, hey, your accountant's not good enough. This is probably something they have a pretty good relationship with and they've done great so far, so why can't you work with them? But by coming from that standpoint, saying, hey, look, if you're satisfied and they're doing a great job, and obviously with us all working together, we'll know for sure if they're doing everything that they need to. If there's some things that we could point them, hey, this is something else maybe you should consider because we're doing this on this other side. I think that coordinated effort really will help that their current CPA be even better.
That's exactly right. And I think, again, like I said, most of the time they're kind of looking at either the current situation, current tax year, future, maybe the next tax year, but they're not looking long term. And if we can develop a relationship where we all look together as a team, we can't help. So like in a lot of cases, I may come up with a strategy, but I want to go to the CPA because I want to know what he feels are the tax ramifications of that. So we come together, start working as a team. And I think it becomes much more productive for the business owner.
Yeah, absolutely.
The second person is the attorney. And there's a number of areas where business owners have to apply attorneys, again, in their business structure, when they're forming either their company, the corporation, however they're doing that, when they run into business legal matters, whether that's workman's comp situations, different types of liability problems that they might come across. And then the third one is on a personal level as estate planning. Now, one of the issues that and we see in this current environment is in this age of specialization, a lot of professionals, and especially with attorneys, tend to focus on a certain specialty, which is a good thing because we want to have experts in those areas. But again, is the effort being coordinated on all aspects? Does the estate planning attorney understand the structure, the business structure? Does the attorney that's developing the business structure understand the liabilities that the business owner may face? So again, it comes down to having a coordinated effort. And that's where we can step in again as that financial point person to help make sure everybody's communicating and on the same page. And because we work intimately with the business owner, we understand what they're trying to accomplish, their needs, their challenges, their fears. And so again, we can help to guide the discussion in that direction so that the business owner accomplishes what they want to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're filling in the pieces of the puzzle that are missing for most of these professionals because they just don't have those open conversations. And so having you there to do that, I mean, that's the true benefit.
True. That's you hit the nail on the head there.
All right. So who's the next professional?
Well, the next one is your insurance specialist, and that would be your P&C guy, your liability insurance, errors and omissions, auto, personal, disability. A lot of those guys, they may specialize in one or two specific areas. There are a lot of what would I call general agencies that do have a broader scope and maybe have experts in a lot of those areas. But again, one of the issues that I found is that a lot of times the insurance specialist is trying to sell a product, and they may underinsure a client just to make a sale. And that's something you've got to be very careful with to make sure that the client is adequately protected. So I think, again, having that second set of eyes, that person to help coordinate the efforts, looking again, what is the tax liability? Where's what is the business structure like? All of these things. Having that second set of eyes can help to coordinate the efforts, even with the insurance specialist.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The fourth area is the benefits specialist. Again, that's their, group health, group life, the ones that understand, put together the employee benefits programs, not only for the employees, but also for the business owner. You've got to, they have to understand the workforce demographic. The other key thing is a question to ask is, are they captive? Are they limited to one or two plans that they can sell, or do they have access to the whole breadth that they can find the best solution? So again, that's, I think, something that's really important for the business owners to ensure that they're getting the right benefits packages in place that will fit their employee demographic and also what they're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. When you're talking about a benefits specialist, for small business owners, what is that break point where they need to start looking at that? If their business is growing, and let's say they're starting out as a small shop, they've got 3 or 4 employees total, they may not be offering all that stuff up front, I would assume. As a small business owner myself, I don't do that currently because, well, it's only me. I'm a very
well, exactly.
But so when you talk to business owners that are looking to expand their company, when is that break point where you say, you know what, this is time to start looking at this?
I think it really depends on, first off, their cash flow and what their goals are to grow. Again, most business owners, like you and I, it's really just us. And most business owners start that way. It might be just the business owner or, husband and wife, maybe some kids are involved. But as that business starts growing, they start taking on employees. And there is going to be some point where they're going to have to look and say, does it make sense to start providing benefits to them to help to retain and acquire the right talent that they need? That's really the key thing. I don't know if there's a number, because again, if you're in an industry that maybe just needs, basic labor, it might not be as critical. But if you're in an industry that is highly specialized, like maybe like a machine shop where you need somebody who can handle very, intricate jobs, and that person's very specialized, you might need to put in some type of benefits package to be able to help to acquire and retain the right people with the right expertise.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, again, there's no set number. It really just depends on the nature of the business, what the growth is, how cash flow looks, and does it make sense to start implementing these programs?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the fifth area is the financial advisor. They're usually the ones that, again, they're implementing financial strategies, whether it's implementing a retirement plan for the business, maybe help to set additional reserves away for the business, maybe even guiding providing guidance to the family and employees on financial strategies. So again, that could be a critical role that, but again, if it's not coordinated with the other professionals on this external team, there can be a disconnect. And I think it's really important to have somebody that's there that's kind of overseeing the overall strategy to make sure that business owner is accomplishing what they want to accomplish.
All right. That makes perfect sense. All right, Matt, that was the first 5. You said that was, we have a couple different sections here, but those are the ones that most, that most business owners already have in place, or they've already looked at putting those folks in place. And now we're going to get into 5 more that are other team members that maybe aren't as thought of as much by business owners, correct?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And again, I am taking this from my own experience in working with business owners and where I've seen deficiencies in their team. So the first one, and it's a really critical one, and it's an HR specialist. Now, most small businesses do not have an HR department. Usually it's the business owner. The one thing that we're seeing, especially in today's environment, is there's a lot more complexities now in the workplace that necessitate expertise. Just to give you an example, one of my clients who owns a collision shop is now finding there's a lot of new issues that are out there. With the whole COVID-19, what do we do? He's in a what's considered an essential business. He's got to keep employees there and working, yet he has to also look out for their safety. And so we've actually hired on a HR specialist that is somebody that can get into the intricacies of human resources to help guide him. And I think that's one area where business owners typically miss. And there's a lot of outside organizations that provide just help as needed. You don't necessarily have to have this person on staff. Again, depending on your size, I think the bigger you get, you need to have an HR department. But on the smaller business end, again, we have access to a number of consultants that we can bring in to help guide that business owner on, in their HR policies, putting together employee handbooks, all those type of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the second one is, and this is going to sound a little funny, and the term's getting a bit overused, and I don't think really people understand what it means, but it's a business coach. And what a business coach is really somebody that you have that you can go to kind of give you a second set of eyes on what you're doing, what your strategies are, and be a sounding board to help you kind of work through a lot of those situations. And also that business coach can help you to be accountable to the goals that you have set for not only yourself, but for your business. I do this with all my business owner clients is really we set goals. And one of the things that I ask them is, where are we on these goals? And it's not it's not to really beat them up about it, but it's again to help them to be accountable to the things that they want to accomplish. they give you that second set of eyes, that sounding board. I hired a coach in my business about 9 years ago, and it was the one thing that transformed my business, because we tend to get locked into our own way of thinking. And when I hired that business coach, he got me to expand my thinking and to think outside the box. But also when we talk, he's looking and say, okay, where do we stand on this? Where do we stand on that? Again, holding me accountable to the things that the goals and the objectives that I'd placed. And sometimes I'd say to him, I said, yeah, I started doing this, but then as I looked at it, I wasn't either comfortable with it, or I thought I'd maybe go down this way, but it gives me somebody to kind of talk through the situation with.
So let me ask you this. Are you still working with that business coach?
Oh, yes, I am. He's a very valuable part of my team.
Got it. Okay. And the reason I ask that is because as a business coach myself, I look at my job is to work in small increments a lot of times. Just like you were talking about the HR specialist or bringing somebody on for a short amount of time. I don't want to be in a relationship long-term unless I am that sounding board, right? Just like you're talking about. If it's something where we slow down the coaching aspect of our relationship, and it's more every so often, once you've started on your goals and you're down that path, I think that's perfect. So I think that business owners need to look at that, bringing in that second set of eyes for a very specific purpose to accomplish goals, to be able to say, okay, now you're off and running. Now we're gonna scale back just a little bit, and there's still that accountability piece. There's still somebody else that you can bounce some ideas off of. But I think a lot of times those coaching relationships start off pretty intense, and you start on a trajectory, and then once you kind of got your feet underneath you, you're like, okay, I now know exactly where I need to be going. Then they're really there just as encouragement, accountability, and again, to bounce ideas off of.
Exactly. I mean, I'll have situations that maybe I'm not exactly sure how to handle it, and I will pop him a message and we'll talk, maybe even if it's just briefly, to get his ideas on it. So again, I don't want to get locked into my own paradigm. He helps me to expand and to look at it from a much broader perspective. And maybe my way is the right way. That could very well be. But to me, there's a comfort in being able to go to somebody else and saying, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think based off of your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fantastic.
The third area, and this is actually an interesting one, and I had a situation with a client where this came up, but it was in sales and marketing training. Again, a lot of small businesses, they usually have some type of sales team that's going out there and selling. The problem is that most business owners are not looking for salespeople. They're basically get a body in and kind of say, all right, I need you to go sell this. And that person has never been fully trained to be able on how to sell. We had a situation like this with a client who owned a trucking parts company. And he was complaining because his salesmen just weren't hitting the numbers that he wanted them to hit. And they were seeing sales as being stagnant. My background is in sales. I kind of went in and I was talking and I'm like, this is getting a little deeper than what I want to get into. But I had a partner of mine who this is what he did with sales and marketing. And so we actually went in, we'd go in once a month and basically just provide sales training to the employees. And then he would also have calls set up, usually about once a month with each one, just to talk about their individual situations, their challenges, their mindset, those type of things. And I think most small business owners, again, because they don't either have the staff or the knowledge on how to train their salespeople on actually how to sell and what are the features and benefits of their products, they're missing out on a lot of incremental sales that they could have. So I think having somebody who can come in and help train your salespeople is vitally important.
Yeah, absolutely. Most business owners that are successful to begin with are successful because they believe in what their product is, their niche is, their service is, whatever that is. And they're naturally charismatic. So they have built their company around themselves. Once they grow large enough where they have to replace themselves as the main salesperson, there's just an assumption there a lot of times that I can bring this person in and I'll tell them what we're doing here and they'll be as excited as I am and they'll be able to do exactly what I did. And we'll have rapid growth. Not so much, because you're the one that started that business. You're the one that had the dream and the vision, and that came through in every conversation that you had. And a sales team, a salesperson, they might not have that same passion, but they need to be trained on verbiage, on techniques, on all these different things that will help them be a better salesperson altogether. And I think a lot of business owners just think that bringing in somebody, they're going to be able to duplicate themselves. And that's just not the case.
That's exactly right. It's interesting when the trucking company and parts company that I was telling you about, the owner he was an accountant by trade, but he basically had I'd seen him in action, and he had some natural sales ability. Mm-hmm. The problem was he knew what he wanted to accomplish. He knew what he wanted them to accomplish, yet it was not something that he could teach.
Yeah.
And so that's what was making him frustrated with the salespeople, because he would go out and say, well, I can do this. Why can't you?
Exactly.
But they've never been given the true training.
Because they're not you.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The fourth one in this list is what I call the advanced business planning specialists. These are experts who can start looking at more advanced strategies depending on the business owner's current situation. Mm-hmm. I have one of my partners is a woman who does some very advanced strategies utilizing life insurance and trusts to be able to create additional tax-deferred and tax-free income down the road for these business owners. So again, sometimes it's like you have the basic plan in place, like maybe let's say a 401k profit sharing, maybe you add a cash balance, but if that business owner has really good cash flow, they're going to need some advanced strategies. And so I have partners on my team that can help us to guide them with these advanced strategies to accomplish what they want.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and then the fifth one, and this is going to sound a little funny, but and some people might go, really? But it's a therapist or a counselor.
Really?
And oh yeah,
that's my first reaction. Is really okay, interesting.
And I think that's what most people are going to think. But it's amazing in my 15 years of being out there, how much head trash people are dealing with in their lives.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes it makes sense to just, to have somebody that you can go to that's a trained professional. I mean, I talk to my clients about a lot of very deep and serious issues, but there does come to a point where I say, whoa, this is starting to get a little above my pay grade. Mm-hmm. And I have team members that are therapists that I say, you should talk to this person. And every client that's done that has gotten benefit of it. I did it years ago. And it transformed my life because, again, I was able to work through issues that were underlying in my head, from probably back in my childhood.
Yeah.
And again, by being able to work through that stuff, it helped me to regain a sense of vision, a sense of purpose, and just helped me to have a much more positive life.
Absolutely. And I agree 100%. And in my coaching, I often ran into that same blockade where I'm a coach. I'm not a counselor. Right. I'm not a therapist. And there's only so much I can do. There's only so much I feel comfortable doing because there are some underlying issues here, whether that be with self-esteem, whether that be with trust issues with other people, that can really put roadblocks in your business when you have those things that you just haven't worked through. And there's no shame in talking to somebody, especially a professional that can help you dissect, okay, where does this come from and how do we separate that out from who you are now to who you were then or what happened back then, whether it's childhood, teens, early 20s, doesn't matter. I had one client that was burned very badly by a business relationship, and the trust level was just through the floor. There was no trust there for anybody else that they were bringing into their business, and that makes for a very toxic work environment. And they just didn't understand that. And so being able to really move past that, they had to speak to somebody who could really work them through what it looks like to trust after being burned, by a previous relationship like that. So I see a huge benefit. I think that's a great team member.
Yes. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing here in the future is I have a number of team members that I'll be bringing on we'll be able to dive in more detail with each one of these through an interview. So
absolutely. That's great.
There's a couple other what I call other team members. They may only be needed on a as needed basis, but I think they're important people to have. The first one is a college planner, somebody who can help that client navigate the challenges of college planning for their kids or grandkids, whatever those situations may be. And I have a friend of mine who's in Colorado who's the premier college planning specialist. Helps the whole way from helping the kid to identify what their interests and talents are, look at majors, start doing the school selection process and which schools are the best for these fields and also are the most apt to provide financial aid. Just to give you a real quick story, I mean, one of my clients who is a high-earning surgeon, their son was getting ready to go to college, and this was actually, we started about sophomore year. Mm-hmm. And they were like, we're not going to get any financial aid. Well, they were working with Beth for sophomore, junior, and senior year. He's going off to college, and he's got a significant financial aid package because they followed Beth's process. So I think that's a critical thing, but again, on an as-needed basis.
Yeah, great.
So the second one is the elder care specialist, somebody who can provide guidance into, we're in a sandwich generation. I mean, you Absolutely. And I have talked about this, Eric. We have young kids. I mean, you even have grandkids, but then you got older parents too.
That's right.
And so, and a lot of them, like my dad's got Parkinson's, my mother-in-law has dementia. These were serious issues, and we came to a point where we had to start making some decisions. But luckily, I had Eileen, who's my elder care specialist, who would come in. She interviewed my parents and my in-laws, got a gauge for the type of care that they were going to need, was able to go to the right homes that they needed. My parents were more independent living. My mother-in-law needed personal care. So she was able to identify that and get them into those places. So I think having somebody like that is a critical thing because we're all running into these issues more and more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another one is a cross-border specialist. As the world gets smaller, we're seeing, relationships within families that are where people have dual citizenships. Maybe they're expats where they've moved to another country. There's actually a lot of people are retiring to these retirement communities in Mexico or Central America because of the low cost of living, but it has its own intricacies as far as from an estate planning standpoint, from a tax standpoint. So I have a woman in Bermuda who this is what she does, and I'm able to tap into her expertise to be able to guide clients that might be in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. My parents retired down to Costa Rica, and so they ran into all sorts of issues down there, and now they're back in the States, but they went down there basically because it was very low cost of living and obviously tropical and wonderful.
Right. Exactly.
But there was also issues that they had to deal with, so that would be great to have that expert on board.
Yeah. Yeah, we found it to be very useful, and it's interesting how much more and more I'm running into these situations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
A federal employee specialist, if you have maybe one of their family members doesn't want to be a part of the business, they join the federal government in some way. Maybe they're part of the postal service, the military, whatever that may be. The federal benefits program is very complex, and I have on my team the top federal employee benefits planner in the country, who we can come in and pull his expertise to help them to navigate through a lot of those issues.
Yeah. All right.
And then the final one is a business diversification specialist, somebody who can go in. I have a friend of mine, Britt Schrader. She works for a company called Franchise, and there's times when, and we talked about this earlier, where maybe a family member isn't interested in the business, but there might be some type of ancillary business that they can start and provide diversification to the business owner and provide a place for that family member to be able to achieve their goals. And so that's what Britt does, is she helps to look and analyze a person's situation, what they're looking for as far as another business, and help to pair them up with franchises that might be a good diversification and also provide a home for people that don't have family members that may not have an interest in that business.
Got it.
So this is just kind of a selection. I mean, there's a lot of other ones, and thankfully over the last 15 years, I've developed a pretty extensive network. So when we run into certain problems, there's usually somebody I can call on to be able to help to bring in as part of the team, and I can help to coordinate that effort.
Yeah, that's great. All right, Matt, this has been great. It's also kind of been like drinking from a fire hose because we get so much information. But I'm looking forward to you bringing on guests that you're going to be able to drill down and really talk to some of these experts that you're speaking of today. We are running low on time, so what are your final thoughts for today?
Well, basically, I think the key thing is, when you hire us, you're not only getting us, but the team. And because we know you, your business, and your vision, we can help you to coordinate all of these different experts to achieve what's important to you and also help you to avoid the things that you pray don't happen. So, and like I said, I mean, I have access to experts in all of these areas, plus others over this last 15 years of working with business owners. So what I'd recommend is contact us if you want to learn more about our team and how we can bring the rest of our team to you to help benefit you in your vision and in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing any business owner wants to do is get stagnant, right? And that's where we kind of get stuck in the mud sometimes, and we just don't know what direction to go, whether that means we need to bring in a coach, or we need to bring in some sales training help, or we need to bring in an HR specialist to talk to us about our employees, so on and so forth. There's just so many things that a business owner has to look at. It's nice to be able to go to one person and say, hey, look, this is what I'm facing. What have you gotten? And I know that's what you provide. So I encourage everybody to reach out. How do they get a hold of you if they do want to reach out and chat with you?
Easiest way is you can go to my website, DiFrancesco.com. Up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see schedule an introductory call. You can click on that. You get right into my calendar. As always, I give everybody 30 minutes of my time to just discuss your situation. There's no obligation. There's no fee for that. And then we can see if we can help you or if there's some other next steps that we can take. And I always promise that even if I can't help you, I will point you in the right direction, or at least get you moving in the right direction. So that's my value that I want to provide to the audience here.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, sir. It was great today, Matt. Appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate the chance to be able to share this knowledge.
Heck yeah. Love it. All right. And I want to thank you, the audience, for listening to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Matt comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or another qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, doing business as DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state securities authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.